Welcome to the All Things Circular podcast, your gateway to the circular economy. Hosted by industry experts Victoria Darcy and Rich Bulger. Every episode is proof that circularity isn't just good for the planet. It's a smart business decision. Our mission is simple: to empower, to inform, and to show you how to make the circular economy work for you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of All Things Circular. I'm Rich Bulger.
And I'm Vic Darcy.
And we are coming to you live again from the ITAD Summit.
We are. Now, interestingly, Rich, what is ITAD?
ITAD stands for IT Asset Disposition, which is a fancy way of saying when I buy a whole bunch of stuff and I use it and I no longer need it, what can I do with it and hopefully add some value?
Yeah. And I think also doing ITAD right? Because this is a complex part of the economy because no one thing is the same.
That's right. And when you say IT asset disposition, that does mean different things to different people. It could mean just say, I've got some stuff, get rid of it. It could be surgical in terms of having a target for value that you want to extract. It could be very critical in terms of how to go through and manage information on things. One of the first and most important rules I learned in reverse logistics is protect customer data always. Mm-hmm. And there's an overkill where people will go through and destroy things just to get rid of them. There's a tactical where you can go through and remove information and forensically validate that it's been removed through technology. There's a whole host of different ways to bake that cake.
So let's begin to break it down then for our listeners, because, we may have people that really don't come from this world and don't really understand it. So, first and foremost, it's around taking the products that people no longer want and responsibly putting them on its next journey. Now, that journey could be resale. It could be new life, but also that journey could be, the products may not be able to be resold for whatever reason. And one of the critical components of the IT asset disposition world is picking the right partner.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything, and we've said this a couple times so far on the podcast, every value generation outlet, when you have product that makes it to a reverse center, there could be value that could be extracted from it. Every value has a what you can get and a velocity of how fast you can get it. Every part of the process involves a cost to reuse.
Yes. And
your mix of the different value generation outlets give you a blended benefit. What can you get? And there is such a vast disparity between how companies are going through and manage their cost to reuse and managing their blended benefit. So internal processes impact cost to reuse. Shipping things from Maine to Tempe, Arizona, just to ship to a final destination in Florida represents cost in recycling mileage or reuse miles. And your blended benefits could be, you can go through and just sell a list of stuff in a Gaylord and hope you get value for it, or someone might pick it up for free thinking you're saving money. But understanding the true value of what you can get and having partners that can go through and minimize cost, those are the best ITAD friends that a distributor or manufacturer can have.
See, you hit on a great point there, which we have spoken about before. That if your ITAD partner, your returns partner, your liquidator says, don't worry, I'll come and get it for free, that's not what you want to hear, because what they should be doing, we should be evaluating what you got. Triage. Triage is really important. A lot of organizations don't understand even the assets that they've got, never mind the value. And then, it moves. And to your point, transportation is such a huge part of this, particularly when you're talking about transferring data, potentially transferring data if we're talking in the tech world. And then we move on to data destruction. Then we move on to, can the organization I'm working with responsibly destroy the data? And what did they use to destroy it? What certifications do they hold? I think one thing that we would like to do is to educate people that you need to ask the questions of your provider. Don't go with the one that's easy. Don't go with the one with the headline. Look at it. And I think there are some standards and some certifications that the good ITADs that we know that collect, right? The international, the ISOs to begin with.
Well, I think there's also good suppliers. Like the secondary market will go through and offer more money if they're not gambling. If they know specifically what they're getting in what condition, then they'll be able to bid more closer and appropriate. And a lot of people, I've seen people go through to hyper levels and they will go through and inventory everything down to the micro serial number, and they want a trail of destruction for each part, which is a great thing to happen. There's a cost associated with managing to that level, but it's control and it's more information. And I've seen people say, well, I don't even know what my stuff is. It's over in the corner. I just want it gone. Did you know right now we've got 3 cameras and 2 lights, and you could go through, just take an image of this. I had a friend say, hey, it's too much work to go through and inventory everything. And when I took a picture of the setup, load it to ChatGPT, and it could tell you the exact type of cameras that we're using to shoot this episode. And you can take that and get a fair market value. So it's not as hard to go through and find information as it used to be before AI and ML.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's on the resale side. Although one of the things that, again, I find incredulous really is the unnecessary destruction of things through fear. Hyperscalers are the worst for this, because if you were to take, a server farm from a hyperscaler, they pretty much mandate the hard disk drives are destroyed. Those hard disk drives are perfectly functional, and actually there are data destruction pieces of software out there that will overwrite those drives to the point that no data can be recovered. But this fear, and because of this fear, they destroy them, whether that be putting a drill through and then putting them into a shredder. But interestingly, I had lunch with actually Josh Beasley, who we have interviewed, and Josh did a test on some shredded drives and managed to record or recover some data of shredded drives, because now these processor chips are so small that actually when you say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's shredded, that's not necessarily a complete destruction of data.
Yeah, because on a board, if you go through and run a cell phone or a laptop through a chipper, the chipper might destroy parts of it, but it might not grind up the part that's holding information to the level. There's a set of standards. If you're an American Public University student and you're watching this podcast, and thank you, I hear that you are for a while. Dr. Hedgepath, thank you, we love you. They teach about the National Institute of Science and Technology, NIST.
NIST 888.
-R. And it gives 3 levels of destruction. There's purge, which means you go through and remove data to where it's infeasible, not impossible, but infeasible to go through and recover. And I think that's some of the language that makes people nervous, but the manufacturers and OEMs can dictate what a purge is. There's destroy, which means clear, which means going through and executing the erasure commands on a device. Press the button. If it blinks 3 times, it's gone. And then there's destroy, which means destroy. There's technology that goes steps further than that will go through, allow you to plug up a device, a laptop, a cell phone, even a server with IP information could be customer information. But the good technology will go through, execute the command, and then match that result to a base configuration of that device to see as a memory at where the memory should be, to do a validation that the erasure command actually did what it was intended to do, and create an independent record that was done. So I have found that going through and providing education on the levels of data erasure and walking them through the validation process that exists during and after, to ensure, hey, someone can say that the light flashed 3 times, they could write it on a log, but that doesn't mean it happened. There's some pretty cool tech out there that goes through and helps protect customer information and promotes reuse.
Yeah, and you touched on NIST. So in Europe, and actually it does exist in the United States as well, there's a certification called ADISA, and that kind of is like NIST on steroids, I suppose.
Well, there's different levels of ADISA.
There are.
So it's like you gotta graduate ADISA. So talk a little bit more about the ADISA standards.
Well, so, I mean, there are, and the top standard is called Dial 3. And actually, for those of you that are really interested, we should get Steve Mellings on, who owns ADISA. But it very much starts at the physical security level. So, it looks at what type of security you have on a physical building site. Can people get in? Can people break in? And then, it's the process that product flows through the organization. It then becomes that data destruction, the testing of that data, and then, the final product. The ADISA has Dial 1, Dial 2, Dial 3, and I think it's Dial 3, which is the top level. But certainly we're now seeing actually more manufacturers ask for ADISA, which is it's ancillary to the ISO. So you've got the ISO 9001, the 27001, the 14001. Those are the international standards that look at processes, look at security. And then, on top of that, specific to data destruction, you've got things like NIST and ADISA.
Oh, yeah. So if you go through and you hearken back to what we discussed in one of the learnings of the master classes that we had, that even reverse logistics professionals have never been trained on reverse. Imagine being a procurement specialist that has to go through and write a contract and requirements, or a corporate auditor that needs to go through and ensure that people are adhering to their requirements. Who is training them on what levels of data erasure are appropriate, that people try to go through and make best possible assertions? But one of the reasons why I am particularly fond of some of these accreditations, even though they're expensive and they're tough to go through, getting audited by people who know what they're doing and have been trained is different than just going through and enduring a corporate audit from someone that has had no training.
That's it. And certainly one of the ADISA ones, they do surprise audits once a year. They don't tell you they're turning up, they just turn up.
Yeah.
And that audit takes a day. What's also brilliant about those people that go through the certifications is it's not just about the data destruction, it's about the recycling. It's about what happens actually to that product, because as you and I both know, it is fundamentally wrong, is greenwashing is so rife in this industry.
That's been a bug in your bonnet.
Be in my bonnet.
Be in your bonnet. All right, I'm trying to get the British phone.
You're doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is because I find that people that say one thing and do another, it annoys me. But actually, I find it dangerous, because greenwashing is people that say they're behaving ethically and not. Rich and I recently interviewed a wonderful environmentalist, Nathaniel, from Sunscreen IT, and he went out to an e-waste site in Ghana.
Chased him away.
They chased him away. He was told not to cross a bridge and crossed it. But he was saying that...
That's my kind of guy.
But he was saying that, he took a shovel, and he said it was like going through, a geologist would go through the bedrock and be able to say, which version of the Earth and the iteration of the Earth was from certain rock formations. He said you could do the same based on mobile phones.
Yeah, and see, the technology progresses. It was put in the ground, and then a layer of dirt was put over it, and then more technology was put in the ground and a layer of dirt over it. And a lot of people, we've heard this from several of our guests, think that they're doing a good thing by going through and donating to a charity. And the charity goes through and they take that stuff and they say, yeah, we'll reuse it, and they sell it to a third world country. And then when it gets there, some of it can be used, but the stuff that cannot be reused is put into a part of the world that has the least amount of infrastructure and capabilities to handle the fallout from it.
Yeah.
So they're stuck with it. And that's why you see these massive piles of clothing in
awful.
Jungle environments, and you can Google and find them all over the internet and see all the different logos that are there. But a lot of them started with the right intent and not understanding the impact of the right thing. The treatment's worth more than the disease, hurts worse than the disease.
Let's double click on fashion on that one, because again, through our conversations, we have found that, particularly with fast fashion is but for me, it's creating a culture of consumption that just the world doesn't need, because the psychology behind that sweater that you bought for $1 means that you're less likely to either treat that sweater particularly well, but when you're done with it, you're going to put it in the bin, you're going to put it in the trash because it was only ever $1. So the psychology behind the behaviors in terms of products are impacted by the price. But then look at the materials that $1 sweater top, whatever, is made from. It's plastic.
Yeah.
And it can't be recycled because it's and the intensity of the process that went through to become a garment is then single use because of the consumption, because of the psychology behind the purchasing of it, and then it's just thrown away. That is a single use product that is actually unrecyclable in many instances.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about the impact of e-commerce and now cross-border e-commerce that helps go through and match supply and demand a lot faster. And one of the hallmarks of being a circular logistician is you really need to understand how people buy. Because by understanding how people buy, you can go through and respond to how people return.
Yeah.
And one of the compelling statistics that I learned, and I believe I learned this when I was doing a conversation at Columbia University, was when we were growing up. I feel old even just saying that. But there was 4 seasons. There was the spring, the summer, the fall, the winter. And then your lineup existed until the change of the season. Now there's more than 52 different seasons, and manufacturing can begin and end based upon some TikTok influencer posting something that people like, and then you feed them with the opportunity to buy it. So production lines are changing now multiple times a month, sometimes multiple times a week, to go through and capture what is compelling people to buy, and that's creating this long tail of return problems that need to get solved.
Oh, it's huge. So, looping this back down to IT world as we're at the ITAD Summit, and taking your example there, one thing about ITADs and one thing about the industry, and certainly some of the organizations that we know, is there is tech and there are organizations that understand those lines, and they understand the resale for those lines, because the resale for an iPhone is not the same resale for a PC, for example. And there are specialists that will be able to come in. And a good ITAD doesn't just triage. They value. And not only do they value, they understand those resale lines to the point that they then can put the line together to remanufacture or refurbish that product and then resell it for the highest value. That, for me, is the top end of the ITAD spectrum.
No, and if you do it right, good ITADs can go through and not be a threat to brands and distributors. They could be an enabler of people going through and migrating to the next newer technology faster if they can harness the residual value of the old piece of equipment that they have.
Pays for it, right? If you can achieve some funds back from the resale of your old, that's funds to spend on new. That's funds that go back into the bottom line of the organization. But also, and again, I'm talking specifically to manufacturers here, that second customer is a potential whole new customer set for you. Not everything is available refurbished, but if a customer wants something and they're bought into your brand, they're then more likely to go and purchase that new item, because that customer is not just a customer for that one sale. That customer is multiple sales. And licensing, we speak about this quite a lot. Licensing is not transferable, but the hardware should be. Yeah. So if you make that hardware transferable, but then you've got a brand new sales opportunity, which is 100% margin or close to it.
So when Dr. Lemke and Dr. Rogers wrote the book Going Backwards in 1999, it was a really good book. And some of that is still true today. You had to drive down unwanted linear returns that come from linear sales, but there's a return reason that exists within retailers called a buyout. So a buyout would be, I'm going to go into the grocery store and my competitors' crisps, I'll use the British term for chips, are on the shelf and I want that end cap. So what I will do is I will buy out their inventory at the grocery store's cost in order to replace their product with my product and own the space. Now, when you transfer that to a circular world, a buyout could be, I will give you $100 for your old thing of my competitors as you go through and buy the next new thing. And they might just be shifting marketing dollars that they would have just discounted to go through and get a customer to make a purchase. But by spending it, that I'm going to give you value for the competitor's thing, they're taking a competitor thing off the market and providing a value to the competitor's customer that the competitor is not willing to do themselves.
They are, but I'll give you the other side of that coin is what do they then do with that competitor's product? And you and I both know the answer to that is they destroy it.
Yes and no. I mean, because some will go through. If you drive a Chevy onto a Lexus dealership, they're not going to destroy the Chevy.
But that's automotive, and automotive understands circularity.
Well,
talk about tech.
If you go through and you trade in a Samsung device to Apple, Apple's going to sell it. They're not going to destroy it. If you go through and trade in an AT&T device to Verizon, Verizon's going to sell that device.
Now, you see, I would challenge you on that because I know for sure that if you were to trade in switch A from manufacturer A to switch B from manufacturer B, manufacturer A is never going to sell manufacturer B's product ever. They're going to destroy it.
We'll agree to disagree on that one because I may have worked for a manufacturer that was trading in other competitors.
Yeah, but I think you're talking about mobility. I'm talking about networking.
I'm not
talking
about mobility.
Okay, we'll have to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I like it when Rich and I fight or disagree.
Yeah.
Because I think there are behaviours that need to change. And let's talk about trade-in programs. Lots of manufacturers have trade-in programs. And the product that is returned to them, what happens to it? In a circular world, that product should be traded in, it should be refurbished, remanufactured and resold. And actually, if you were to look at some of the marketing headlines, you would be led to believe that those products are, where as possible, remanufactured, refurbished and resold. But because manufacturers, particularly I'm talking about tech manufacturers, don't necessarily have their dominoes lined up for that resale model of the refurbished equipment. For whatever reason, they're not incentivizing people to do it. They fear it. Actually, even though the marketing may say something, the behavior says something else. And I find that problematic.
Yeah, if I want to go through and check a company's propensity, I'll use a marketing term, to be circular, there's a couple things that I look at. I want to take a look at, does their marketing team know who customer 2 is and 3 is and what compels a purchase? I want to look at their finance and see how are they valuing used equipment. Do they have the capability of buying low and selling high, which is a hallmark of a successful circular program? I look at their point of sale because point of sale is a direct relation to finance. Most companies have the ability to take money for things. And it comes in one direction, but when you're trying to give money to a customer as they're trying to make the best next purchase, a lot of companies don't have the ability to go through and give a customer a credit outside of bad financial metrics like discounting or billing credits or other things like that that are negative on the financial sheet. If a company says that they're circular and they don't have the ability to provide incentive, if they don't know who the second customer is, if they don't have a financial accounting methodology that can go through and manage, are they really going through and making a good financial decision by acquiring and holding equipment as the value could erode? You can tell a lot about how circular a company is by looking at finance and marketing.
Completely agree. Going to add 2 points to you. The first one is the margin, and you touched on it then. I think when you are talking about margin and organizations, particularly manufacturers that want to make the same amount of margin on a circular product they would make on a net new product, the house of cards falls down because you can't buy product in the market. You can't give a value for the product in the market and then make those same margins. So I think if organizations can fix that, then that would be a huge leap forward. The second piece that I want to add to that is I do believe circularity would vastly increase and the demand for it would increase, because I don't think the customer's the problem. I think part of the problem is people are coin operated. And, if we were to incentivize the sellers of the tech to then say, okay, I'm going to pay you 1x for selling that refurbished unit, or even better, I'm going to pay you a margin because it's more margin rich. Then, you're going to find the sellers will sell the product quite often. And particularly when I was in the channel selling, you would find these objections, cannibalization being one which we cover an awful lot. But actually, people are coin operated. And it's not the fact there isn't demand. We see enormously increased demand, particularly with organizations that want to, look at their, reducing their carbon footprint, for example, want to kind of behave in a more green fashion, because let's face it, people sell on the back of these credentials these days. So I don't believe the problem's in demand. I believe the problem is in the way that the sales organizations are structured to sell circular products.
No, totally agree. We've seen examples where any return is a negative financial impact to a sales rep, meaning, the thing came back and it's commission chargeback. I tell the story of my Dodge Ram that I bought used. So when I bought my Dodge Ram, I bought it used, and it had about 500 miles on it. And I was on the hunt to find something that had low miles that had been used, because I didn't want to pay the depreciation. And this particular truck was bought from a Dodge dealership, and the person who bought it needed a fifth wheel, needed more towing capacity than what this truck had. So when he went back to the dealership and he's like, hey, this thing isn't quite working for me. Can I get a new truck? They said, no, we're not gonna refund you. And the guy's like, well, fine. And he went to the Honda dealership and said, what will you give me for trade for this? And they gave him fair market value for the truck. And they sold him a Honda. So that was an instance where if the conversation was shaped a little bit different, here's what I can do. The truck has 500 miles on it. Let's go to Kelley Blue Book so you're getting a fair price for the use and value of your truck. We can use that to help sell you the one that you need.
And Honda got a customer. Yeah, and I think what a wonderful way to describe customers' buying behavior, but also it becomes that retention. If you don't behave in a way that your customer wants, needs, expects, you're going to lose that customer. And I think now people are getting more savvy to that.
And customers will find the value. It's where kind of the term the gray market came. It's not illegal to buy a Dodge and sell it to the Honda dealership. It's not illegal to buy an iPhone today and sell it tomorrow to someone else. Maybe some price gouging if you go crazy with it. But just because you're selling outside of a manufacturer-approved sales channel does not mean it's illegal. That's what the black market is. The black market is
counterfeit.
Counterfeit. It's all of the bad things that are truly illegal. The authorized market or the white market became the term because brands controlled the process and they controlled the data through the process. The gray market is not illegal, but you lose track of the data. And while a lot of companies think, well, hey, listen, your customers don't want to returns or our return rate's down, that does not mean that the customer is not finding value for themselves outside of the knowledge of the distributor or brand.
Yeah. And that's the advent of the digital world, right? Because now it's really easy to take your product to your point. We can identify product, we can identify a fair market value for a product, and we can resell that product. And one of the things that I still find incredible that people they don't accept it. And one of these is surplus product. So lots of, we're at the ITAD, so let's talk about tech. Lots of tech vendors have partners where it's a legal order, right? But the customer cancelled. And then their vendor says, I'm sorry, there's no RMA or sales are final, you can't return it. What do they think happens to that product? It doesn't just go poof,
That's exactly right. And if I was a brand, and I may have been a brand at one point in my life, and I wanted to try to go through and find an easy way to approach building a trade-in program, the first place I would look at RMAs that I denied.
Absolutely.
Because those are the ones that have the highest risk of a customer saying, well, you just sold me $4 million worth of stuff and you won't give me anything for it. I'm not going to say, oh, shucks.
I'm going to eat that.
Brand protection for vendor X is most important to me, so I'm just going to take the loss. No. Platforms make it so easy to match used supply with used demand that if a brand says no or a distributor says no, they're going to find value themselves. And I've said this a lot in the master classes that you'll never beat the secondary market. It's too big to go away, but you can be the best at it.
Yeah. I used to use the analogy of a salmon when talking about the secondary market, and vendors that just want to be that salmon. They want to swim against that tide, and don't be the salmon. Because, again, let's just take this as an example. Channel surplus is new in box product. It's never been opened. It's never been in a production environment. That is then resold onto the market outside of the vendor's control. And we talk a lot about being that second customer isn't your first customer. But channel surplus actually goes against that ever so slightly because it is brand new product. It's new in box. Your primary customers will buy that. I know, and then you really are competing. That is cannibalization.
Well, and if you go through and you take a look at why did that product become available in the first place, why was surplus product out there, was because there was a need that was not met.
Yeah.
You either oversold or over forecasted for the right reasons.
Possibly, or it could be a cancelled order.
Yeah.
You know, we saw it. I certainly saw large cancelled order where, you know, a customer's priorities changed. COVID was a huge one, and we saw the big semiconductor shortage, you know, and COVID combined, where lots of businesses were trying to hedge in their bets on forecasting, or but also customers' priorities changed.
Yeah. Well, Vic, this is going to be a very fun ITAD Summit and another fun season of all things circular. Is there anything that stands out that you want to make sure that as we journey forward that we lean into as we continue our discovery?
I really want to start looking at recycling, responsible recycling. I really want to start to look at programs that things like lithium batteries. You know, less than 1% of lithium is recycled. And as we walk forward, resources are becoming more scarce, and it's certainly something that I would like to lean into. But Rich, you know, you said it to me. Let me ask that question back to you.
So for me, I'm on the hunt right now to go through and find creative ways that technology can be repurposed. Motherboards, for instance, for laptops. I'm very interested in finding people that can go through and take technology that might be 3 to 4 years old that can't be used to manufacturing a competitive product in the laptop space, but could be used to go through, if it's a new or like new condition, and be used to go through and make the next thing, a drone, a digital sign, televisions, gaming systems, edge computing. There's a ton of different applications for older technology to serve a newer purpose that might be modern by today's standards, using parts from something that had a purpose that is past.
As we find the answer to that conundrum, let's bring that back up in a future episode. Let's see where we get to.
All right. Well, it's going to be fun. Thank you very much for joining us today and tuning in to another episode of All Things Circular.
Thanks for tuning in. Please head over to allthingscircular.com to learn more.